Hi, thanks for joining me again, and thanks to Kathleen Whalen of Whalen Financial in LaSalle for her ongoing support of this multimedia project called Tom's Take. Now, if you live east of Route 23 between Sycamore and Grand Ridge, or south of I-80 from about Marseilles to Hollowayville, then you probably live in the 76th Illinois House District. If you can picture it in your mind, it kind of looks like a big capital letter J on the map. And if you live in that district, you're going to have to picture a new person representing you in the Illinois House of Representatives in Springfield. The current seat holder, Democratic State Representative Lance Yednock, has decided to not seek re-election to the General Assembly. In an announcement that he released to WLPO News last weekend, Representative Yednock said that he's looking forward to returning to what he feels is his true calling, and that is operating heavy machinery and organizing workers as part of Local 150. Well, the very next day after sharing that news, Lance was good enough to give up some time for an on-camera chat at his district office in Ottawa, and it was a good talk. One that a reporter might expect from a lawmaker who's no longer really all that concerned about how his comments are going to be taken by voters. The difference with Lance Yednock, though, is that he's always shot straight with me and with other members of the media. So the openness you're going to hear really is to be expected. Still, maybe it was just my imagination, but I sensed a whole new level of ease around him when I showed up on Monday. I started by asking him why he's decided to leave Springfield.
Well, I'd been thinking about it for probably a number of months. I didn't raise my hand and say, please, put me in the state legislature. It was something that I sort of backed into. There's no doubt about it. It was a fight with the Rauner era politics, and so I decided to run at that point, and I will be the first one to say it wasn't my goal to be in the legislature or to be in the legislature forever. And so taking stock of what I've accomplished and maybe some of my disappointments, I started to tell myself that it was time to maybe move on and give someone else a chance. I think that, downstate lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, which there's many more Republicans downstate than there are Democrats, we feel like there's just this divide or this dissonance between what we need and what they need in Chicago or the more urban areas. And I will agree, they have different challenges than we do, but we have no less challenges. Just different. The nature of them are different. We're starved for resources. We don't have as big of a tax base. We actually don't have as much access to things like health care and other, social services because just the way the geography and the population centers are. It's very difficult to convey that. Most people, I think, many people, maybe my colleagues in the more urban centers just think that everything's, really nice out in the country. It's a nice place to live. It is. But we do lack resources. I've got to know a lot of my colleagues from the urban areas, suburban and Cook County and Chicago, and you know what? Their challenges are tough. I will be the first one to admit I probably had a different opinion about what goes on up there than I do now. I have a lot more sympathy for the challenges in their neighborhoods. You try to find that way to talk with them as people, not as legislators from other districts, to say, where are your challenges at? How can I help? Here's my challenges. How can you help me? Honestly, that's how I've approached it, and that's how you learn. And I've tried to always be a bridge between urban and rural and, Democrat and Republican. I think that's just who I am, but I've made it a point to be that way since I've been in the legislature. I think that we have got into that era where it's important to show your supporters that you're out there, knocking people around and showing that the things that matter to you, versus the approach that I have tried to take is that, well, hold on, explain to me why I should or shouldn't support this. It's probably the nature of social media and just the way that we run campaigns in America. It's the best system that there is, but it's not perfect.
When you got to Springfield, what surprised you?
I guess what surprised me is the brevity and the quickness of how bills get passed and through, and then also
you can't just read through every one.
No. When we get to that last couple weeks of session, and you have 50 bills or 60 bills a day that you're trying to, read the Cliff Notes on and decide whether your district will support that or not, how you're going to vote. That is very difficult. So the pace of that, and it's weird because the pace seems like you're going nowhere, and then all of a sudden every bill hits the floor. That part has been, difficult to navigate and learn. It's also, just sometimes the lack of debate or thoughtful debate, even in committees. We sort of have our minds made up before we get there, and I think that's hard to stomach, but it is just part of how the system works too, and the best you can do is try to get to people beforehand and explain to them why they should or shouldn't support something. If you take the time to sit back and hear from both sides of the aisle, or both sides of the issue really, then you can change your opinion. But we do have many preconceived ideas of what policies work and don't work, and it is tough sometimes to let your guard down and be thoughtful about a policy. You're betting on probability that if you vote one way or you get a policy in one aspect, that it's going to get the returns that you think it's going to.
If you're listening to this on the radio or on the free WLPO app, I'd like you to remember that Tom's Take is a video project, and you can view it among all the other weekly videos I've done so far this year by going to the Starved Rock Media YouTube page. And right now, you're about halfway through what I hope you'll agree was a pretty cool video chat with Democratic State Representative Lance Yednock. He's decided not to run for a fourth term in Springfield next year. I asked him what he's proud to have accomplished as he looks back on his 3 terms.
I was very happy that we pushed back on the right-to-work zones, and then, of course, we got the right-to-work constitutional amendment to get on the ballot and people to vote on it and say that, we want unions to exist.
That was essentially one of your main reasons for running, right?
It really was.
Something like that.
Yes, it really was. I think that's, one of my favorite accomplishments. Getting some capital back for the district, working on Starved Rock, Buffalo Rock, Illini State Park, some of those has been, I like the fact that we're starting to invest in those. I think we're a little short on those, but those are some of my favorite accomplishments. I worked with the local school districts, especially the superintendents, on trying to start pare the amount of administrative overlap that they have to do. That was something Ryan Lining and the group, they call themselves the Voice Group. It's an acronym. They wanted to get a lot of reforms, and I said we can't swallow the whole elephant. We got to take little bites. So let's start. So we've got some significant legislation through that has made life easier. It's taken away redundancies, and it's better because they have more time in the classroom or to help mentor teachers, and it's just less costly not to have to do things 2 and 3 times. Those are some of my proudest accomplishments, I would say. Senator Rezin and myself have had a relationships from before when I was a legislator. I mean, I have consulted with her on policy before, and she's always been very approachable and very easy to work with. And of course, when it came to something that in a district we share, there was never going to be an idea of who's going to take the lead, who's going to do what. We were just working together, trying to get both the governor, his staff, and then the legislature to help us out. And they did to some extent. There was some support for St. Margaret's early on. Unfortunately, in this next budget, there wasn't, and that has been one of my biggest disappointments. And the last 6 months of losing 2 health care facilities in my district, 2 or 3 miles from each other, and not having some support and a $50 billion, $600 million budget has really kind of was a letdown for me. I will say that's been one of the biggest challenges I've faced. I also will say that I'm different than a lot of my caucus. I'm very moderate in my views. Some would even accuse me of being conservative. And I'm not against my caucus's plans and my more progressive colleagues. I just have a different look at it, and I will have to say, I might be the one walking in mud and taking a long time to come around to policies that might actually make the world and our state and our communities better. And I would rather not be in the way. I would rather be someone that says I'll be supportive if I can figure out how to be supportive. And maybe it's time for me to move on and let someone else that has a different perspective or might be more amenable to the larger caucus's goals, that they will work with and help. I want my district to succeed like I do the state of Illinois. And I'm the first one to be self-deprecating and say, it might not be them, it could be me.
Did you experience any of that where, because you were more moderate, it wasn't just a question of not really getting the others to understand what the issues were, but did you just flat out not get support where you needed it because of it?
It was a tough question for me to answer. My inclination is to say probably, but for me to be able to prove that is a different story. Recently I've had a bill vetoed. We had the issue of St. Margaret's health care. These are things that we should support, especially when it comes to access to health care. And so I was extremely disappointed when I was told there was going to be support and then it was pulled out. And so, maybe it was because of my stances. I mean, I will say I originally was going to carry the right to work amendment. And I sort of got the feeling that maybe some of my votes on previous bills might poison that potential. I did give it up for the goal. Whether I needed to or not, I wasn't exactly sure, but it felt like the right thing to do at the time. And I don't know if that's because of, just my stances on things and my votes on things. Yeah, there's a bit of me that's going to be, I'm going to lose. Miss being down there, friendships, relationships, and just being ensconced in the issues of the day. I mean, there's more things that I have had to read about, think about, and vote on that I would never do otherwise. And it's probably tuned me into how the world works a lot more than it would have otherwise. But there is definitely a relief of being able to go back to running a piece of equipment, working for a local, going home at night and not thumbing through my emails and find out who hates me today and who loves me.
Or scheduling yet another chicken dinner that you have.
Right.
How's without getting into specifics, how are the people in your personal life taking all this?
Mostly are very supportive. They know it's a challenge to try to be there every day, be present, and go out and knock on doors and understand it takes a toll. It takes a toll on friendships. It takes a toll on marriages. It takes a toll on so many things. So they've been very supportive. Many of them are like me. They're kind of like, they feel a little bit bad that I'm stepping away, but at the same time, they understand and are very supportive. There's so many people that have been a great example for me over the years that just do things. The mayors, the city council members, your county board members, the people that are just in service organizations that just want to make their communities better. I appreciate them, and I want to be part of that life again, too, and just help our communities become better.
Are you going to endorse anybody?
When the time comes, maybe. I have been short on endorsements. I mean, I'm going to be supportive of, a few candidates that run. We have to see what the field is going to be and who ends up being there. I'm a party person. I'm going to probably back who the Democratic candidate is. There's no doubt about it. But it's pretty early in the stage. I mean, I'm supportive. My chief of staff is going to run. Maybe she's an exploratory, and so I'm going to be supportive of her. But I will say endorsements are going to be something earned, less just given.
When all is said and done, and you remember from the time you had in Springfield, what do you want people to remember about you there?
That's a good question, Tom. I think if I want to be remembered, I want to be remembered as somebody that came down there with an open mind and a handshake to say, tell me what's important to you, and and let me hear you out and let me vote appropriately. And I also want them to know that I'm someone that tuned into my district and didn't go to just where I was liked, went to where I might not be liked, and tried to hear what they have to say and hear their concerns. I just want to be, if I have to be remembered for something, be remembered for somebody that really tried my best to represent the district well.
Well, there's certain to be no shortage of people interested in running for the 76th district seat now that Lance Yednock is stepping aside. News organization that we are, you can count on us to cover that election just as we do all of them. Many years ago, I was on the Republican payroll in Springfield, so I mean this when I say it. I hope the next legislator is as straight shooting as Democrat Lance Yednock has been. I appreciate his giving me some time to talk openly right as his announcement was hitting the fan. As I thank Kathleen Whalen of Whalen Financial in LaSalle for sponsoring this project. And most of all, I thank you for checking it out. So, how about it? If you'd like me to feature a person or an event or an organization, just give me a call at the station's office line. That's 815-223-3100. It's my privilege to talk with you about what's on your mind. And it's my privilege to talk to you in the morning.